Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is August 15th, 2024, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we are talking about the new AI business plan for SMEs. I don't know why I almost said 2025 there. I'm having trouble this week with the dates, but no, it is 2024. It is August 15th. We are live as we are every weekday. We haven't missed one yet, including all holidays. That's how we've gotten to episode 248, 9? No?
60 something.
269.
269 today to 270 tomorrow. Okay, so with us we have Beth, Junmi, as you just heard, Carl and Andy, and I'm Brian. And the goal of today's show was really that we, as a group, us, the 7 of us, and then we're not all here, be either within our own side business, like I work for Scaled, obviously, but also within Daily AI Show. We end up talking to businesses all the time. We're always having conversations with people. I definitely do on the sales side when it comes to Scaled and so on and so forth. The reality is we're talking all the time about AI and what's going on and how companies can prepare. And we thought, you know what, it's time to just pause really quick and do a show about this, because whether you're actually working for an SME, and an SME would be a small, medium enterprise. So we're talking today about businesses that have 1,000 or less employees. And the reason we are using that framework is because we want to talk about companies that probably have people in various roles, not somebody who might be currently running all of sales and marketing, which, by the way, happens all the time. Of course, you have to wear a lot of hats. We're talking about a little bit more mature businesses, a little bit larger, that would have a lot of these defined roles, because it's just easier to have a conversation about how AI will impact those different ones. But if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, if you're a solopreneur, this can still be super, super valuable to you to just get in the right mindset about, if I'm building a business today, regardless of how far into that business you are, what does the next 1, 3, 5 years look like for me as a building the business? So hopefully this is going to be a really informational show. If nothing else, it's going to help you guys understand where our brains are as AI consultants and experts in our fields about how we're talking to businesses. So that's sort of a starting point here. And before we get into sort of like sharing any screens, I know I have some show and tells and stuff. Who wants to kind of jump in? Maybe Carl, do you want to jump in and talk about your experience? You've obviously recently, not just recently started, you can kind of tell us, but 0 to 60.ai is your company, along with some partners. Maybe first give us an overview of what you're doing at 0 to 60 so our audience understands. And then obviously you have lots of conversations, just like I do, with companies about where their current pain points are. So maybe that's a great start.
Sounds good. But in any time that my mic gets cut off or anything, you got to let me know, because I don't want to go on a tangent and then end it with, and that's that. And no one has.
Okay, tell you what, if we can't hear you, Thumper will arrive in the screen.
That sounds good. I'll be looking at you. So for us, 0 to 60.ai is our company specifically targeting medium, small businesses, help them find real and tangible benefits of AI. So we're looking at actually, from a strategy side, education side, and a lot of implementation on things that they can do today. No. Oh,
you're good. You're good. You're back. You're back.
So terrible. Hold on.
Just for a second. Go ahead.
Maybe go to another person for a second.
Okay, I'm going to jump in and just provide a few little
all right, how's that?
Nothing. Oh, that was it. I didn't say
Better?
Anything.
Okay, because I can't hear anything. But that's okay.
It's okay. We're going to go over to Andy.
0 to 60, essentially. Again, real and tangible benefits for businesses, medium and small businesses. We're looking mostly around under 500. And for us, what we're seeing is a lot of these businesses, and we're in the non-tech space. We're traditional oil and gas, manufacturing, construction, real estate, home building, metal contracting, places that are traditionally considered laggards in the entire space. And they also are paying attention. They also have all the same needs as enterprises and technology or technology adjacent companies. But their challenges are, hey, their margins aren't as big. So they have very, very either limited resources or very focused on what they're doing. The what AI really brings to them is, if their margins are small and you can improve their efficiency and productivity by 10 up to 40%, but even 10, 15, that is really, really, really significant for that business. Like we have, for example, we have companies that, let's say in real estate, well, smaller real estate companies, hey, their margins are a little small. So instead of having their team, maybe some of their customer service and sales team responding to questions on a regular basis, we provide a simple, very, very simple digital assistant on all the people who have bought a new home. Here's all the questions that they normally have. Hey, have our engage with our digital assistant. About 85% of your questions will be answered that way. And that in itself is a very simple deployment. Will save them 10, 15, 20% of a person's time who could be whether in sales or doing customer service. And for a medium-sized company, stack 2, 3, 4, 5 of those, that is big, big, big for them. And that's what we mean by real intangible benefits, whether it's a simple automation, whether it's a digital assistant, those things, if you add them up, very big return on investment. And that's where the space that we play, because it's so easy to showcase that. And the other piece is we don't have to deal with security operations or SecOps or any kind of playing field where an enterprise you have to have single sign-on, all the different security and privacy levels, versus a medium and small size enterprise where the president's like, I don't give a crap about that. They kind of do, they kind of don't, but I want to engage and deploy. I want to see this for my business, not be caught up in months, versus an example, an enterprise company where it took 2-3 months to get it through both legal and SecOps team. It's, the deployment takes a long time, or you're limited to the playground. So there's another company, another enterprise we work with, a lot of good ideas. Hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to deploy this, and they're like, okay, cool. Let's get on with it. The caveat is we have to deploy all of this through Microsoft Copilot. And we're like, you can't do half of what we just talked about in Microsoft Copilot. And in fact, I don't think Microsoft Copilot is the best thing. And said, well, we can't do anything else because we bought 350 licenses with Copilot. Then I asked, why did you buy that? It's like, well, we got caught up in the hype too. So I was like, you signed the dotted line with Microsoft. So, so that's maybe a small little overview of working with small, medium-sized enterprises.
I have a question for you, Carl. Can you hear me? No, he can't hear me, so we can't ask him a question. Okay, a couple of things. One is, in small companies, the leadership of small companies, this is a survey in an HR organization that provides consulting services and information on the HR side. Leaders of those companies, 66% of them say they won't hire someone anymore who doesn't have AI skills. Now that's a big number, 66% not wanting to hire without AI skills. But on the other side of it, among employees in those same companies, 25% of them say, I would be interested in getting training in AI. But the other part of them, that they're not using it, or they might be using it on a personal level, but they're not using it in their workspace. So there's a gap between what leadership in small and medium enterprises are thinking about in terms of the forward future, like the 3 to 5 year time frame, and what they're actually doing right now. And so a lot of our advice to organizations is to take advantage of the data that's very clear that individual worker productivity is significantly improved when they're given access to and employ AI tools, specifically generative AI tools, in content generation for their own work inside the corporation. And that's a key distinction that I wanted to make in the question I was going to ask for Carl. The example that Carl used is an outward-facing, customer-facing system. But there's also internal facing systems that he actually provides to many of his clients, which is what he said. One of his first recommendations is, and we have these conversations among ourselves, build a co-pilot that's trained on all the corporate information and provide that co-pilot, and not Microsoft Copilot necessarily, as you heard him say, but an assistant, an AI assistant that's trained on all the company information, so that inside the organization, whenever anyone has a question or wants to consult with a subject matter expert inside the company, they can first turn to the internal business co-pilot and get information about that. So you can improve the productivity of your work and workers, and at the same time, basically circulate a lot of the institutional knowledge that you have in your organization by building such a reservoir of corporate information that has a natural language interface to it that makes it really easy for your employees to save time finding out what they need to know in order to improve their performance in their own workflows.
And I just want to take that a little further.
That's okay.
Okay,
I know.
He really
I
advanced
don't
the
know. I can't hear
conversation there.
anything of anybody. I may bad habit
Good
at this show. This is so terrible.
It's okay. Carl was telling us after the show yesterday that despite it working for months and months, there's just something going on with the connection with StreamYard, which is the platform we use. So sorry for the, I know it's frustrating Carl too, and we're all kind of laughing along with it. But these are the breaks, as they say, when it comes to live shows sometimes, and we're just going to roll through it. No big deal. I wanted to actually add on to Andy, but we'll obviously get back to Carl and what he wanted to expand on. But Andy, I think you make a solid point about the internal use cases, and something that I have personally worked on with companies going back to 2017 when I left sort of, let's say, entrepreneurship in terms of running my own businesses, and I came back to corporate world. The first place I was helping with data analysis for a company that worked and did consulting there. And of course, a huge issue with data analysis is always going to be the idea of this single source of truth. And it's sort of cliche. It was sort of really, really used. Data is the new gold, God, or oil. That is new oil. We used to talk about that all the time. It was used over and over and over again back in, be honest with you, 2018. However, what I see when I consult companies even today, now, of course, I focus a little bit more on sales, but with daily AI strategies, we actually talk to companies who reach out to us because of this show. So it's not always sales. We're talking about different departments. Carl's talking to the departments, but here's what you see in any given company. And I guarantee you, if you're in an SME right now, if you're in a company that's got about 500 to 1,000 employees, you're raising your hand when I say this. There is information probably in the Google slide, or maybe SharePoint if you're on the Microsoft side of the house. You probably have untold information in Slack or Teams, depending on which side of the house you're on that. You probably have stuff that somebody has made a good, honest effort to build in Notion. And now Notion has documents and stuff like that. And now you have now layer on emails, now layer on actual official PDFs and documents that your company has probably produced. If you're at that 1,000 level, that's somebody's job. They have, HR has produced, well-tuned legalese documents at this point, right? Lower companies, smaller companies, maybe not as much. My point is, just to answer simple HR questions like, in the US, when are my next days off? Sometimes can be a struggle, can be a pain for your employees. And of course, that's a simple answer. That's certainly not what AI can do. But to your point, to Andy and via Carl, is yes, it can, if you can organize that data and get it to a single source of truth and then load it in as knowledge documents for these different AI solutions. There's many out there, or you build it custom. That enables your employees to say, hey, when are these next days off? Or how do we approach this for an RFP? Or what would be our stance if we were dealing with this type of company? And if that data exists, not only will it bring it back much more efficiently, but it also cite it. It'll tell you, I pulled this directly from page 10 of the document that is in the background. So you're not even worried about hallucination, because you will always have the opportunity to go and see where it came from. Now, you can layer that with all the trappings and accoutrements that come along with AI, which is to say, hey, look at my knowledge document and come back with this single source of truth, and layer onto that maybe some deeper research on a company that you're looking or prospecting. Of course, we might want to use the internet for that, but internally, I 1,000% agree what you're saying. Is there's just so many ways to improve efficiency with some of the smallest things that people probably are overlooking today. So just a solid point, and definitely something I want to make sure we talk about. Go ahead, Beth.
And this is one of the things that I think is the difference between being inside and really engaged with AI and being just slightly outside or further than that. And that's one of the benefits of working with a team that is so engaged with AI. So if you're not particularly good at prompting, you set it up, you just think, oh, good. Brian said that it's good. There's no hallucination anymore. We're just going to like shove a document in and say, what is this? Right? Like that doesn't mean there's not that. But there are ways to completely lower the risk of hallucination. There are things that you can do with knowing how to prompt. And that doesn't mean you're teaching all of your company how to prompt, although that's not a bad idea. But you can set up things that are more automations that access the information that you want to access, that you want people to access. The other piece that we've talked about in terms of like an onboarding example, but this same kind of thing as having a business co-pilot that is like your knowledge base. It's also the advisor for people, right? So what if your brand, your standards, your like your thought process, right? That is the not the single source of truth, but it's like the total alignment in the company, right? Mm-hmm. So like the executive and the C-suite team and the leadership have said, this is the story of us, and this is the story of us going forward. And then everything underneath can actually query that, right? How great would it be that you could query that and get feedback on that from the AI that's internal in your business, so that then you can align it, right? That doesn't happen in a meeting or that kind of feedback. Like it saves everybody's time and honestly just makes things run a little smoother moving forward. That's the kind of work that we're talking about.
I'm so glad you mentioned onboarding, because if there was, there's so many. If there was one area that I think AI can make a drastic improvement across almost all industries, because everybody onboards. There's always new employees. Some industries certainly have more higher turnover than others. I work in sales a lot. There's a bit of churn in sales teams, right? But let's just take a quick example, and then we'll move on here. Like you're onboarding. Now, current case probably is I'm growing. Fantastic. Great. My business is growing. Ooh, I'm going to need some more outbound salespeople. We've got 5, let's say, and we've got an AE, whatever. I need to hire more. Okay. The current process, probably the best, in the best of worlds, is that there is some training. There's hopefully for that, like that new salesperson who's got experience in other areas. Let's say they've got 5 to 10 years of sales experience. They're just changing companies. So they're not wet behind the ears straight out of college. Okay. And they're being brought into this company. They know how to sell. They may not know your company specifically in industry. That's where the gap is. A typical onboarding for a sales rep is going to be 90 days. That's typical. Now, if this company is on their P's and Q's, they're going to have maybe some pre-onboarding before that person even hits their first day, getting them associated with what you just said, Beth, about what is our ethos, what's our values, what makes us us. And right now, that's usually route through like some HR person, somebody who's in charge of the onboarding. And they're going to say, take a look at this document. This is going to tell you a little bit more about our values and mission statements and stuff like that. Also, you really kind of need to know in depth what our customers want, because that's who you're going to be selling to. What are their value props, their pain points, on and on and on. We can all agree that there's many, many things to onboard a good sales rep. Now, let's kick forward to an AI solution with that. That's possible today, by the way. The onboarding is so tight that before day one, that sales rep gets access to some chatbot. that's been built with internal documents. It says, welcome to the company. We want to get you spun up. We are so excited you're here, and we want to make sure you're a valued part of the team. And part of that is providing this chatbot that you can ask questions to your heart's content, and it will answer anything. You're more concerned with how salary is distributed. You can answer that without having to feel bad or feel awkward that you have to ask that you feel you want to ask that question. You care about health insurance because your kids have orthodontics like my daughter does. Sure, you want to know what those things are, and you don't have to go through 3 or 4 emails to figure out who at HR can answer that for you. Great, no problem. But also, as you get on through that onboard, hey, sales rep, we're going to give you everything you need in a just-in-time fashion so you always understand how to help whoever you're on a call with. By the way, we also have ways for you to also do cold calling, and if you're doing cold calling or outbound or whatever, and you can do role playing to your heart's content. We have people that will review it with your AE and your manager, but you can play and play and play and play and play until you feel really comfortable with how we say these things. Guess what? That rep is going to be selling and making an impact on your ROI in probably less than 30 days. From 90 days to 30 days. And know what you also did? You probably also ensured that you have an employee who's excited about being there, about making the transition in their world, in their employment, and who wants to be there long-term. So not only are you getting higher ROI, you're reducing future churn. And nothing is more expensive to a company, especially as you go up through the levels into executive, is having to deal with churn. If I have to replace Andy at my company, it's going to be a several month process. And all the time that Andy's not there doing what Andy does as an executive, I'm going to lose ROI because I don't have Andy. You know, he was sort of talking about that yesterday. So just want to bring that up about how impactful it can be and how you can revolutionize something like onboarding fairly simply by using some AI tools. Go ahead. Sorry.
And if we bring that back around, when we lose Andy, we don't have to lose Andy quite as much as we have before. Because now Andy, with his consent, right, and request, I guess sort of a little bit of both. You definitely, you can make a picture of Andy if you want, but I'm just thinking the knowledge that he had, right? And this is something that you can do as a company, like as part of your planning, as part of your knowledge transfer planning, right? So yes, right, you have all of this stuff. You want to make sure that you are not losing your company knowledge, your company data, your leaders in your company and what they know just from experience. This can also be a place where AI helps. So, right, we're talking about AI is helping as new people come in, and we're also talking about AI helping in the same kind of way as leaders move out.
I want to add to that, but also what I think we all know this, but I think it has to be said. And Paul Reitzer on the latest artificial intelligence show mentioned that unlike any other thing, it is, yes, we have to prepare. You have to show them real, tangible benefits. What can they do today? But we also have to prepare small business and medium-sized businesses, which account for like 90% of the businesses in North America. We have to prepare them for what not just is here, but what is coming, right? And to have that foundation of a co-pilot is important because that is the foundation of, hey, what happens when higher level reasoning comes out? What happens when an agent comes out? What happens when innovators, like I'm using the OpenAI 5 levels, what happens when an organizer comes out? So at least your company has that base already, whether you use it just as a simple advisor, or actually, if you step a little further, can you turn it into digital employees, not to replace people, but as extensions of different departments? So whether you're accounting, human resources, marketing, sales, every single department would have that co-pilot trained on knowledge that longtime employees have had. And all these co-pilots, what's amazing about them is you can make sure that they see things from the perspective of your company. your mission, your values, your vision, your target audience. So if you have some that technically is a supercharged employee who can see, who can eventually hear, who can, it's connected to your data, who can search online and has your knowledge, and soon will be able to do stuff on, independently, those tasks. That's what we're kind of building for. And I feel that's where a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises and businesses have an advantage over the bigger ones, because they can adapt and engage and implement faster than an enterprise.
Let me jump in and just say that the aggregation of institutional knowledge has always been a fail in every company I've ever been involved in. And it's because when you're in the flow of having to execute all of the different business processes that you're working on, you don't have time to step back and build a repository of SOPs and playbooks that, and if you do, if you invest so heavily in creating those to capture what the business processes are and what the points of view of the experts who manage those business processes are, nobody ever looks at those things afterward. Well, the advantage of AI is if you start progressively to just record in short videos, each person sort of engaging with an AI that's going to collect that information. It could be just a little snippet. Hey, every month I have to do this process, and I just want to let everybody know that, the best way to do that is this and this, and this is why, because it downstream, it affects, the accounting department. And so I just want to let everybody know that. Done. Recording goes into the AI. The AI has the capacity to accept and aggregate all of those kinds of deposits to the corporate knowledge and summarize them, to categorize them, classify them, organize them in by department and everything else. And then what Carl is saying is eventually there's a teammate that's an AI that has access to all that information and can answer almost any question. That's the future. So there's a part of this, we're focusing right now on sort of internal knowledge-based collection, which is an important part of making things accessible internally, but also externally. But then there's a governance problem, like how much of that information that's accessible to internal users and the AI digital teammates can also be expressed externally. AI can assist with that. What are the proprietary pieces of information that shouldn't ever be disclosed? And so we're really at the early stages of thinking about these things. But the simple thing that can be done right now in any small to medium business is you can create an internal, well-trained, corporate knowledge, sophisticated AI respondent to all of your employees. And that gives them the experience of working with a generative AI, a natural language interaction with an AI.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sorry, I'm going through that in my head. I want to bring in one of our comments from Cisco. Thank you, Cisco, for putting comments in here. And he says you could use tools like Claude's artifacts exactly for the use case that I was describing. And then he goes on to say, I've created quizzes based on transcripts and research papers using Claude. It's a very cool way of interacting with your knowledge base. I also believe Google Notebook LM will take that even further. I love that you brought in the idea of like quizzes. That's something that wasn't my idea. I won't claim credit here. It was actually something my boss, Jake Dunlap, who's the CEO of Scaled, thought about months and months ago. And it was just not where my brain was going, but I'm so glad we took that path, because I agree, Cisco, like we've been able to use the idea of like fun quizzes as a really easy, low barrier of entry way of engaging with content. And it's not public, right? So there's so many times when people don't want to raise their hand because they don't want to ask stupid questions. That's just common across the board. The AI giving them a way to interact with a chatbot or something that's like through quizzes or whatever is a great way to never have to raise your hand and say like, oh, I feel stupid asking this question. Ask away. you can, if you need help with it, it lowers that barrier of any embarrassment of somebody saying, it probably wouldn't happen. But in our mind, somebody's going to be like, you just asked that question. Seriously, right? That's not going to happen, but that's what we all feel like is going to happen. AI can be a really good way, if it's trained right, to alleviate some of that pressure. Jimmy, I know you had something to add as well.
Well, I wanted to make sure that we also addressed our viewers who don't know where AI is going to fit, or whether if their business is ready for AI, or even just contemplating it, or if you're just a new startup or a new business. And a couple of these things reiterate points that I made. And I think all of the examples and use cases that we've shown so far are all very valuable. But I think for those who are just contemplating the idea, or just moving into this space or growing, there's a couple of steps that you can take, specific steps you can take for implementation. So number one, you want to make sure you can clearly define what your business objectives or challenges are, right? What could be solved, or what needs a solution, and maybe AI is the solution for those challenges. The next step, and I think we've talked about this, several times, is that assessment step, right? You need to run through that readiness assessment, that maturity assessment, to analyze where the gaps are in your business, what needs to be built up, where can AI fill those gaps or provide those solutions. And I think a key thing is also you need to make sure to prioritize that this AI solution that you're looking for, these solutions you're looking for, is a higher priority on your plan for the year, or for the next few years, up to 5 years, whatnot. Because if you don't focus on it, then you just went through the processes of like, oh, that's a problem, we'll put it on the stack to get solved. When you're ready, you definitely have to move that on a higher priority. And then comes ensure your data readiness, right? Brian is famous for mentioning over and over, clean up your house, clean up your data, because, junk in, junk out, right? So you want to make sure each of those things are taken care of. Then once you have all of that ready to go, then you can have your assessment team really tell you what kind of tools and platforms you can build on, and things like that. And then you can go, depending on what the solution is going to be, whether you have to build out your own custom solution, or use something off of the shelf. And then comes, actual implementation, where you're bringing in your solutions and applying them, and you need to test it. You need to take your small group test, and make sure you go through those processes, and see where you need to iterate, or shift, and things like that, and monitor everything that you're doing, so that you can get valuable data on what trajectory you're on, and things like that. And then you want to make sure that you have all the sustainability systems, the support systems involved. So these are just some basic guidelines, but steps that you can take as you go through your process. And in step one, if your business, doesn't have too many challenges, I don't think any business doesn't have too many challenges, but you need to go through that self-analysis, and then you can bring on whether it's an internal or external team, like daily AI strategies, to give you an assessment and things like that. Yeah.
Just to expand on what Junmi was saying, like, there's a lot of the steps that we do, that it's what we do at 0 to 60. But I think what we've found, and going through a lot of discovery presentations with businesses, quite a lot since like last year, we found that like what makes this different than any other deployment or service or anything is that the use of AI in teams and individuals, even the individual with the same role in the same company in the same industry, is very different. And the tailoring that needs to happen, two companies, exact same companies in the exact same industry, we've noticed has completely different the same in structure, but the deployment's very different because of how their systems and processes are. So as a business, when you're thinking about your processes and systems, that's really where AI makes the most benefits. What are the things that you hate doing that you have to do every week that, your team does? But what you hate doing every week and what your team does is, again, different for each person. So when we go in and do those discovery and really dive deep into, let's say, human resources or the people team, there's various use cases that they just don't like doing. And for two different people, it could be the same role, but two different things, which means we set up two different automations that both help them, let's say 20%, decrease the amount of repetitive tasks. They love it, but it's the craziest thing because you'd think one would use the same as the other. It's not. It's different for people, for teams, and for organizations. So it's really important that for us, whether you use a consultant or do it internal, you got to deep dive and really, but this is where AI comes in, where you can just have a conversation about it, extract the transcripts, and then have AI list it. And then there you have you can, start thinking about pilots that you may want to do based on those conversations.
And I think that's a good point to bring in something Jude had asked earlier. What are the telltale signs that a small to mid company is ready to engage in AI solutions? Here's just my answer. I won't speak for everybody, but my answer to that would be if you're at a company and it's like somebody quitting smoking or, stop drinking or whatever. Like there's always that saying that like, well, truly you can help people, but they're going to be ready when they're ready. You can't force them to be ready. Usually at some point during that process, they've hit what they might describe as rock bottom, or a lot of times life changes, getting married, having children can instigate some sort of major change in life like that. Well, in the business world, my analogy to that is in the business world, there are days I've been at companies where everybody kind of looks at each other, the decision makers or whatever, and they go, enough of the way we're doing it. We're finally to the point where we're saying we're frustrated. We don't want to scrap this together. We don't want to, piecemeal this to that or whatever. We grew fast, we grew whatever, and we got messy. It happens. The house gets messy. And so what I would say, Jude, to this is like the telltale signs are simply that they're already conversations about how do we not just put a Band-Aid on this, but how do we fundamentally fix this problem? Because going back to what Jude says, but he was also going back to me, which is to say it's going to be messy before it's going to be better. Any great AI solution is probably going to mess it up. I just reorganized a drawer in my kitchen that was driving me nuts. To do and reorganize this, what was becoming a junk drawer 16 months into owning this house, I couldn't find anything. It had tools, it had this, it had whatever, something to plug in my phone, but it also had the Sharpie markers, right? It was getting to the point where it was no longer efficient. It had lots of stuff in it, but I couldn't find it fast anymore. So what had to happen? I had to pull everything out of the drawer. And for about 3 days in my kitchen, it looked way worse because there was stuff everywhere as I started to try to figure out how am I going to systematically organize the different parts, what needs to stay, what needs to go. So you could take this analogy right into business and say, like, if you're having these conversations, if you're collectively frustrated with the junk drawer in the kitchen, if you're collectively frustrated with the idea of we've got to turn this around because we can't keep going like this, either because we're losing employees, it's affecting ROI, or 1,000 different reasons, that is a telltale sign you are ready to start deploying AI. Because what you're saying to yourself is, I'm ready to get dirty, I'm ready to get messy, I'm ready to be really uncomfortable for a little bit, because the future of putting these right things in place in AI is so great that it's worth the pain. It's worth the frustration early on to create something that has long lasting impact on your business. So that would be my answer.
And just to call back to the beginning, what Carl was saying in the beginning, if you are in a company, and I know so many of you are, where the conversation says we need to do something with AI, and the next statement is, what we could do? We could just buy Copilot because we're a Microsoft like house, that is you're like beyond ready to do it, but you're going down a path that that is uninformed. It's not that Copilot isn't the best solution for everyone, but it it's not that Copilot is a bad solution for everyone. It's that it's not the best solution for everyone. And so if you find yourself in that place, step back, right? Take your hand off the wheel. Don't hit go, don't hit yes, purchase, and really think about what Copilot's going to offer you, and if there are other options, and reach out to have a consulting conversation before you do that, because that what we're seeing, that is a panic decision that gets made. And we're here for you. You don't have to panic.
Yeah. I mean, look, reach out to us. I mean, that's what I would say. Reach out. Just go to dailyashow.com and reach out to us, because it's not about like hiring or signing a contract or whatever. Sure, we do help companies in that way, but sometimes it's an easy question. And if you ask the question, like, I feel like we're moving really quick towards Copilot, but I'm worried that my company isn't really turning over all the rocks. They're just trying to move quick towards an AI solution. That's an easy conversation for us to have, or put you in contact with Carl, where in a few minutes, Carl can say, look, think about this, this, and this, you know, when you go back to talk to your company. So let us be a resource to you for sure. We didn't get to it today. There's really, truly just no more time, and it's totally okay, but I'm going to bring it up on the screen. We'll kind of do this as a part 2. But I had put together just sort of quickly. So maybe I'll make it even better, and we'll bring it back around for another show. But what I wanted to show was just like how in a typical SME organization, multiple different roles. If I just scroll here, we won't go through it. As you can see, roles on the left. And then my top columns here are what, you know, how is this going to be impacted over 1, 3, and 5 years if you're in that role? So we'll just take one like brand manager. That's a pretty easy one, because AI is publicly hitting marketing probably harder than other areas, same as sales, as opposed to what Carl was talking about, maybe in some other legacy industries where you don't typically think about it. So maybe we'll come back to that. I just not enough time, which is totally fine. We had a lot of great conversation today, so I will just put an earmark on that. But, you know, let us know, obviously, if you'd like to get a deeper dive into those type of topics, because what we can do is really sort of talk about a lot of these different roles, and how, based on our best knowledge and what we can see, and of course we can't read the future like anybody else in AI. It's going to change, but we can see a path. We can see over the hill just a little bit like everybody else, and we can make some educated guesses about where these different roles and departments are going to evolve. So that might be a great part 2 to this conversation. So we'll leave it there. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing a little bit of a product review, if you will. I haven't seen it yet. Jumi has access to it. Opus Clip, which is a tool that we've talked about many, many times, that we use on post-production. It's a lot of times how you see the clips go out to TikTok and other places, as well as YouTube Shorts, helping us take this content, the mega content, and chop it up. They came up with a new tool, a new process, whatever, called Clip Anything. We will be diving into that tomorrow, talking about what that is, getting Jimmy's like early, because you just got access, 2 days ago? So not even 48 hours worth of access at this point.
Yeah.
And it's beta or alpha. So it's early on, but this is a great time to talk about some new improvements like this. And we've been generally impressed with Opus Clip. So, you know, if we see something of value, of course, we want to pass that on to you guys. And we have all sorts of new shows coming out next week as well. They're in the hopper. They're ready to be uploaded. We were just truthfully waiting to see if anything really came out in terms of major news from OpenAI. I would say if nothing's happening today, then we'll just move on. We'll put those shows up. So that's it. Go check out the dailyashow.com, as I mentioned, if you want to reach out to us, but also you can subscribe to the newsletter there. There's easy links to all of our episodes and things like that. So it's a one-stop shop for this show and all the things that we are talking about. Thanks to all the comments. Thank you for interacting with us and bringing up good ideas, Cisco and Jude and Jen and others. Really appreciate you guys as always. And we will be back tomorrow to talk about Clip Anything from Opus Clip. So come on back, hang out with us, learn something along the way. See you then.
Aloha.